This is XDefiant, a free-to-play competitive shooter featuring fast-paced gunplay complemented with specialized factions. So, each battle will take place on one of our 14 starting maps.
Also, I have to say this. I have to know, what is their name? Who is the lead map designer on this game? Who designed these maps? Who the fuck made these? Because this person deserves the greatest praise. I can say without a shadow of a doubt in my mind, every single map on this game, even the worst map on this game, I can't even tell you what that one is. The worst map on this game is still better than the best map we've had on Call of Duty in the past, like, 5+ years. It could be even more than that, and I'm not exaggerating. The flow of this game is impeccable. Call of Duty's flow has been absolutely shot for years. A part of it had a lot to do with the maps, and also a lot to do with how the spawns work. This game has it. I guess maybe they just don't want it to flow right. I don't know. They want it to be more stagnant and random, and like, I don't know. It's odd. It's very, very odd. All you have to do is go and play this game a couple times, and you immediately, like, you'll notice immediately the patterns in the gameplay, and you learn from it. It becomes a consistent thing where every single game you have a base knowledge, a base idea of what is happening, a few outliers that could potentially happen, and then you adjust your play based on whoever you're playing against.
I think I agree with everything he said. But I think my favorite parts though are probably the maps and just the overall flow.
Maps are great.
The maps are great. Yeah. Big congrats to Defiant and the whole team over there, man. Great start. It's really hard to put out a product that feels good and plays good off rip, and I think it really does feel good. It plays good.
I also think one of the best parts of this game is actually the maps. There's a huge variety of them. 14 maps at launch. 10 arena maps for the Domination, Occupy, and Hotspot modes. Those include Liberty, Noodleplex, Echelon HQ, Dumbo, Arena, Pueblito, Attica Heights, Emporium, Mayday, Showtime, and then you've got linear maps for the other modes, Escort and Zone Control. That's Meltdown, Midway, Times Square, and Zoo. There's tons and tons, and all of it very good. I'd even say that the bad ones would be considered good maps in other games. They're really well designed. There's 3 lanes for some of those, and then open lanes on the others. It's just well crafted. It's not sloppy as it's been in recent Call of Duty, so kudos here.
The maps are very colorful. Seems like I like the lanes on them. The verticality seems like it's like pretty well balanced so far. A lot like old Call of Duty, right? That's what I'm enjoying the most. It feels clean. It's like simple, but in a good way. Like it feels rewarding when you're beaming people.
One big thing is map design. I feel like the map design is very reminiscent of older Call of Duty games. There's great variety here, and generally great pacing and flow on these maps based on my experiences so far. And a lot of that great flow comes down to the spawn logic. This is the second point. This has very traditional Call of Duty spawn logic to it that I find to be extremely intuitive and easy to predict. And that makes for much more predictable flow on a match. I don't feel like people are just constantly popping up randomly all over the map. Instead, it's actually got some solid logic to it. So when I kill somebody, I have a pretty good idea just intuitively that they're going to be spawning at least somewhere in this general area of the map. And I think that's great for helping you read and manage that big picture in a game. With the spawn logic, there's also a very clear distinction between my team's side of the map and the enemy team's side of the map, and the maps tend to flow the way that they were designed to flow, whereas in something like Modern Warfare 2 with their squad spawn style system, I often find the spawns have you fighting like perpendicular or diagonally to the intended flow of the map design, and that just plays really awkward. Not so much in XDefiant. It plays the way that older Call of Duties used to play.
How much potential does this game have? I mean, I'm having a great time, man. It is still pretty new, you know, obviously, but I'm having fun with it. I like the maps, I like the guns. Obviously some tuning and stuff might need to be done, but I mean, I enjoy it.
Revenge kill, a professional courtesy.
Speaking of maps, there's a lot of them. 14 at launch. Modern Warfare 2 launched with 17 maps, but that's a full price $70 release. This is a free-to-play game These maps are also really well made. They're your classic 3-lane highways, and the developers haven't been shy about that, but they're full of plenty of geometry, allowing you to peek, take high ground, drop to lower levels, and really make use of the layout in skirmishes. They're very dense maps, there's always a lot going on in each space, and it's rare to find instances where one team has an advantage over the other purely because of map layout, or where snipers are able to cover too much area, or where shotgun rushing is the only viable strategy, etc. Ubisoft have said that they spent a lot of time internally and externally testing this game, and I think the strength of this map design is one of the examples of that testing having paid off. The maps also have plenty of personality, particularly if you've played previous Ubisoft games. The premise for XDefiant is that its maps, like its character roster, are pulled from different Ubisoft games, namely Splinter Cell, Far Cry, Watch Dogs, The Division, and Ghost Recon. So as a Division fan, I love it when the Times Square map pops up. It's a wholly original map, purpose-built for XDefiant, but it's full of visual elements that are a nod to the game that began my YouTube career. There's a map set in Splinter Cell's Echelon HQ, Pueblito is inspired by Far Cry 6, Noodleplex is inspired by Watch Dogs, etc. It's a cool conceit, but it's also one that Ubisoft are not limited by, since there are plenty of maps that are just doing their own thing, not directly connected to any existing Ubisoft property. The maps also look really nice. Each one of them has a distinctive visual style that sets it apart from other maps. High-rises, a converted stadium, a theme park, a Crash 747. The visual hooks and landmarks are really well conceived and give each map a lot of identity.
First off, I want to get this out of the way. I think the game is a lot of fun. I've been playing it for the past 3 to 4 days, and I've actually been enjoying my time. The one thing that I really love about this game the most is the maps. I think the maps are phenomenal. Not only do they look good aesthetically, but they play super well. They really give me that old school Call of Duty map vibe. It's almost like I'm always in a gunfight. No matter where I am on the map, I'm just a couple feet away, a couple steps away from getting in a gunfight, whether I'm playing hardpoint, whether I'm playing domination. All the game modes seem to flow really well on this game. The more I'm playing this game in, the more I'm enjoying it. The combination of no skill-based matchmaking, red dots on the minimap, the time to kill is beautiful. It feels so satisfying. The maps, I've already talked about those. Best part about this game, hands down. The movement is super smooth, and you can actually reload cancel in this game. With all of that combined together, the more I play this, the more fun I'm having.
If I can give the game one positive, though, it's the maps. They really remind me of Black Ops 2 in a good way. They're big, colorful, visually interesting. There's a good selection of them. It takes a while before you start seeing the same map in rotation. They're all pretty fun to play in, and they're fairly flat overall. There are a few vertical maps, but only a few. I think for this type of gameplay, the flat maps work better, and they leaned into that rather than the other way around. Good choice. Most of the maps are taken in some way from one of the factions, so there's Division maps, there's Far Cry maps, Watch Dogs maps, among others, but those are what stands out most to me. Like, there's a level set on the Noodle campus from Watch Dogs 2, which is a great setting for a multiplayer level. They're pretty well designed, too, and closely follow the Treyarch 3-lane map style, compared to how sloppy some of the maps got from Modern Warfare 1 and 2. The new ones, I mean. This is a breath of fresh air.
I'm not gonna lie, man, playing this game has made me really appreciate the map quality of this game. Seriously, like, if you go play Modern Warfare 2, I mean, the maps are just, like, everywhere, bro. They are just, like, oh my god, I don't know. They're just so, like, misplaced. There's no, like, fluidity to the maps in Modern Warfare 2. I don't know, I just feel like the map design is so off in MW2, and when you play these maps, you know, they're just very traditional 3-lane.
The maps themselves, on the other hand, are largely standouts. 10 are arenas and 4 are linear, and they all make for visually interesting and varied spaces. Their open designs encourage fast movement and a minimal amount of camping, and facilitate a lot of different types of engagements with just about every step. That helps to make all the factions and weapons feel viable, at least from a playstyle perspective. Running around with a shotgun is just as fun as hanging back with a sniper rifle, even if actual balance may be a bit off.
But the core foundation of the game was incredible, and it was backed by some of the most passionate devs that the shooter genre has ever seen. A lot of the guys working on XDefiant used to work on Call of Duty back in the day. These were the guys who helped make games like Call of Duty 4 and Modern Warfare 2. They were a driving force throughout the golden era of the Call of Duty franchise, and I think that was clearly evident when you looked at just how good the maps were within this game. Not only did the art design team do an amazing job, I actually got to talk to one of them in my live stream the other day. That was really interesting, but the overall layout layout and designs of the maps in XDefiant were top notch. It didn't matter if you were playing Team Deathmatch or Bomb or Escort or Tilt, you always had incredible looking maps that were also very well designed. You can't fake the kind of talent that these guys had. I mean, just look at the map list here of the arena maps that we had in XDefiant. Can you honestly say that any of these maps were bad, like genuinely terrible? Because for me personally, Mayday wasn't my favorite, for example. You know, Emporium was probably my least favorite map in the game, but the sheer amount of good to great to straight up amazing maps that we had in XDefiant was freaking astounding, and I like to call it out every time I talk about it, but I think our maps were some of the best maps ever made for an arcade shooter, so congrats to everyone for what they accomplished.
I said this earlier and I'll say it again. The maps are good. Who made these maps? Who are these guys? W. W!
We did what we came here to do.
Go, bro! These maps are good. That is one thing that I really am enjoying with this game right now.
I think they really nailed it in certain areas with this game. And one of the big ones was map design. This was one of my favorite elements of XDefiant, and going back recently to play it and suddenly experiencing a bunch of the maps that they had lined up that I hadn't experienced before, I was so impressed with these maps. And I think this is one of the biggest highlights of this game. The map layouts had a tendency to offer that perfect balance of action when you wanted it versus the ability to maybe slow down or try for a bit of a flank instead, so you weren't just forced into chaotic action with no time to think or no room to make any interesting decisions, but it also wasn't painfully slow and tactical. It was a nice balance that they found there with their map designs. And a big part of that was the range of map sizes as well. While they definitely had some smaller maps and some bigger maps, the small maps weren't so small that they were just random, mindless chaos, like we'd experience on like face-off maps in Black Ops 6, for instance. And then the big maps weren't so big that it felt like you were playing hide and seek and you were just running around aimlessly wandering trying to find where the enemy players were. I found with their map design as well, a big thing I liked is their engagements were very controlled, and navigating the map was very intuitive. It really didn't take much playtime. Even when I was hopping on some of these new maps for the first time ever, it didn't take me long to get a general feel for how the map is laid out and how I wanted to approach situations. And yet they weren't so simple that you just felt like you were locked into picking a lane and then you had no options within that lane. I felt like there were lots of interesting options available as well. So the best way I can describe their overall map design is it felt formulaic in some ways, to offer consistency and to keep some guardrails in place as far as how they wanted engagements to go. But at the same time, there was a lot of variety in these maps. None of the maps really played exactly like another, and they each had their own very interesting and unique elements to them as well. So there was a good variety of maps, and that's not even mentioning the amazing variety they had when it came to the really unique visuals and themes as well. Especially the fact that these themes were pulled from multiple Ubisoft games, so you had such a crazy variety in visuals and overall themes and aesthetics, and I absolutely loved what they did there when it came to map design. I think this is one of the biggest highlights with this game. Now, on a similar note, and intertwined with map design, spawns. This is another area where XDefiant, in my eyes, did an amazing job. While, of course, bad spawns happened, and they're always going to happen at some point with a game like this, with relatively small maps and fast-paced actions. Yes, there's going to be some bad spawns here or there, but the main thing is with the general spawn logic, it was handled very well. It was always very intuitive, generally easy to read at least the general area of the map that the enemies were spawning at any given time. And again, looking back to my experience when I streamed this, even with the maps that I had never played before, the very first time I hopped into that map, I was reading spawns. I felt quite confident knowing which direction the enemy was coming from off of spawn at any given moment, even when I had never set eyes on that map before that point. Now, on top of that, while they were intuitive and easy to figure out where the enemies were spawning, I felt they also did quite a good job keeping spawns difficult to heavily exploit. Like, sure, you could hold map control and keep the enemy team contained on their, like, 1/3 of the map, for instance, but I found you couldn't really trap so heavily that they didn't have any room to breathe. They didn't have any options to make a plan and try to break out of that spawn trap. And that, I think, is the perfect balance to aim for, where map control is rewarded, but you can't exploit it so heavily that you're just screwed if you end up on the bad side of that and you end up trapped on your side of the map. And when you combine those two main factors, map design and solid spawn logic, this is what led to the amazing game flow that XDefiant had. And that is such an important fundamental element to an FPS game, and it's honestly something that newer CODs seem to be really struggling with. This is probably the biggest factor that gave me a sense of that golden age Call of Duty nostalgia when playing XDefiant. I know it wasn't exactly like Golden Age Call of Duty. We had hero abilities and all that kind of stuff layered on top, but when it came to the actual map flow and just going from gunfight to gunfight, predicting where the enemies are going to be coming from, reading that big picture of the map, and just moving around the map, it really reminded me of the golden age of Call of Duty. That's what Call of Duty used to play like, and I think that's what I'm going to miss the most about XDefiant.